general Italian American life, kind of like you are now and myself, versus guys that are, in the life. What are the differences between like a Greg and your father?
Well, I mean, they're light years in
Yeah.
difference. My father, he, like I said, he woke up and went to work.
Yeah.
Their hours were different, so I can't say every day the fire department. Sometimes he spent the night at the firehouse.
Yeah.
He was going into fires to save lives. I remember some really bad fires that he went into.
Wow.
And on the other end of the spectrum, there's a guy that's taking lives and just nothing but an ego, greedy, looking for money every minute of the day. Definitely. I mean, if there's two ends of the spectrum, they're both on opposite ends.
Yeah. Now, how were they alike? I mean, there had to have been some traits, because I always look at it this way really quick.
Yeah.
Is let's be honest, we're older now, and like that's grooming, right? And at the time, we thought nothing of it, but now as adults and we have kids, we're like, that's kind of a scumbag move. And typically, if you groom, like the guy getting groomed is either something missing and they're going for it, or be attached to something they're familiar with. Where would you say they were actually might be alike in some ways?
Well, they were. First of all, they were both Taurus, if you believe in any of that, which I don't. But they're both men's men in their own way. They're both leaders of men. My father was a lieutenant in the fire department, so he was a leader. He had to lead the men into fires. He was a leader, and the men generally respected him and liked him. Greg was a leader of men. Led us in different directions, but I'll give him that. He didn't just relegate or tell you go do this, you go do this. It was more of a take a ride with me, Larry. So I take a ride with him, and sometimes bad things would happen on those rides. But that's how I learned. So they were both, I don't want to say alpha, that's probably not the right word, but both leaders, both respected, and both had great personalities too. I mean, Greg had a personality. They both did. They laughed a lot together, the two of them.
Yeah.
When we did get together. Over the years. Typically at barbecues or stuff like that, I'd invite them over if my father was having a barbecue. Nice. And he liked Greg at first. He liked him because of that charming way about him.
Yeah. Now, as you grew up, right? So you have your family, right? And your real family, and you got an associate. You eventually got inducted. You were in the war and that kind of stuff. When you got more into the Colombo family, or with the Colombo family, to your regular Italian family, were you an asset? Where somebody called you, hey, this guy screwed me, or hey, I need this construction job? Or were the opposite, where you kind of ostracized, where you were, your cousin Nostra, we got to kind of keep away from you? How did your regular family treat the fast growing Larry Mazza?
Well, my family really didn't know how deep I was getting in for really most of the time I was in, because even when I lost the job with the supply company, I didn't tell them. They thought I was still working for a few years with that. And of course I was making money. I was living on my own. They didn't, wasn't a burden on them. But they thought the money was coming from the company still. Really, they were totally shocked and found out everything when we fast forward in the courtroom. Exactly, how bad I turned out. But up until then, it was more or less. I was a friend of his, and he was influential. Like I said, everybody knew there were influential people in the neighborhood. My Uncle Albert was one. So it got me in this good position. So really you have to juggle both families, and you have to, and I said this before, it's not a nice thing to say, you have to learn to become a good white liar. You don't have them, you give little, no, business is good. Not telling you what business, So it's definitely a dual life.
Okay, so you're doing numbers. Now you start graduating into the bigger stuff. What was that? And if you don't mind, what kind of money is it? More of a business channel? What kind of money were you making? Your job? Walk us through specifics.
As when I was doing the supply company, I was building up to it was commissions. So early on, my commissions were maybe $250 a week. Then then they were becoming $250 a day.
Yeah.
And it grew up even more than that. Where I was making a couple of thousand a week with the supply company.
back then.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that was great. So that's what I said. So it didn't, when I transferred over to the numbers, and now I was still making 200-300 a day in numbers, which is the lowest form.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite that much. Maybe first a buck 50.
Yeah.
But like I said, I learned quick and I didn't miss a beat. So now I had this number thing growing. And what happens is now you're dealing with people that are gambling, and sometimes they need money or they
Yeah.
can't pay their debt, so they want to borrow the money. So now it becomes a Shylocking business too.
Yep.
So you get into the money lending,
Right.
and that business is there's no gray area. If you don't pay, you get hurt. You took our money, and that's where it becomes you're more into the violent world. The gambling, unless a guy abused you, and I'm saying beat me for a lot of money week after week, and then he doesn't pay, he's asking for trouble. If it's a perennial loser, you're not going to beat the guy up because he can't come up with $2,000 or $1,500. He's going to pay you. He don't want to live his life like that. So, but there's a difference. And with the Shylock money,